We welcome our friend Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl, the executive director, the guy who helps decide who will get to showcase their skills in Mobile and maybe raise their stock in the NFL draft. But Jim, you had a fun weekend watching college football. It sounds like you very much enjoyed watching the receivers this weekend.
Yeah, it's a good week for all these guys. Andy, good to be back on, man. Yeah, a lot of receivers jumped out. I was at the Auburn, Georgia game, so I saw the Brock Bowers show. So that in person, that was fun. That was as good a tight end game as I've seen in a long, long time. I think going all the way back, I was at a Vernon Davis game years ago where he went off from Maryland, but it was a good one. So yeah, another good week of college football. I can't believe here we are headed into week 6. So like technically we're at the midway point of this thing. It's crazy. It's going by so fast.
It is wild, and you know, it feels like we still don't really know these teams yet. We've been covering Colorado and Coach Prime and all that, and I always looked at this point of the season for Colorado as like where they get into the games that they probably can win in the Pac-12. So, you know, how do we judge them? But they just got done playing USC. I know there was a guy you liked on USC in that game who is weird. This is one of those transfer portal specials. Former Colorado player, now plays for USC, playing against Colorado, and his father, who's pretty famous, is a former NFL teammate of Deion Sanders.
Yeah, Brenden Rice, the receiver from USC. He was a guy that we almost gave us our stock up recognition to a week ago, and we went with Marshawn Lloyd, their running back, and that you couldn't really go wrong. And actually, Rice is going to be this week's guy. We do a stock up feature every week at the Senior Bowl. But yeah, I was telling a couple GMs on the field at Auburn the other day. They're asking me kind of who I've seen and who's standing out, and I said this is going to sound like a huge cop out, right? It's Jerry Rice's son, so to say he's like a natural sounds like a cop out, but he really is. Like this kid, you see it on scramble stuff, and we all know Caleb Williams loves to do that. Like he just loves to run around and let defenses break down and then just throw some crazy Mahomes-ish throw. In Brenden Rice, you can see how confident he is, you know, and just his football instincts and finding space, and just how quickly he does things and how fast he goes, and his ability to like change gears to find space for himself. So he's an instinctive player. Kind of burst on the scene last year in the bowl game, and now he's picked up where he left off. And I think the difference between he and his dad, and again, I'm getting up there in scouting years, going on like year 25, but I was not old enough to scout Jerry Rice when he was coming out of Mississippi Valley State. But you always heard the knock on Jerry was that it was a speed thing, right? Although we never saw him get caught. Right. We never saw him get caught on the field, but he didn't run a great 40 time coming out. I don't think that's going to be a problem for Brenden. This guy, when he pushes vertical or when he has to hit a gear, you can see it. So, man, he's a fun player to watch. They've got a bunch of receivers there at USC that are draftable level players, but really Rice is the guy we're excited about.
Another guy I want to ask you about is the guy who made the catch that everybody saw this weekend, Roman Wilson from Michigan. He makes that touchdown catch against Nebraska. It reminded me a lot of the Tyrone Prothrow catch against Southern Miss when Prothrow was at Alabama in 2005, where the other guy is in the way and he reaches over and grabs it. And this one was wild because he kind of pinned it against the Nebraska defender's helmet. And but I mean, that's the thing. Like JJ McCarthy's got some targets this year.
He does. Cornelius Johnson's another guy. But Roman, we would love to give Roman like our stock up player of the week, but Roman was one of our top graded receivers off junior tape. We really like this player. Again, because I went to school there, I'm kind of more in tune sometimes with the younger guys coming up through the pipeline. So I've known about Roman for a while. We know he can really, really run. He's super explosive. They play him in the slot. So he's different. I think a lot of safeties and college nickels, like they're used to playing quicker than fast guys inside, whereas Roman just comes off and he's on you fast. I mean, this dude is super fast. And so he's a different speed matchup on the inside. And I think he's leading the country in touchdown catches. I believe, I don't want to misspeak, but I think he's got 8 or 9 touchdowns already. So he's up there. And, last year they had Ronnie Bell, who is down here in the Senior Bowl and is doing good things for the 49ers right now. I mean, with Ronnie being gone, it's kind of Roman's deal this year. And he's taken over as JJ's go-to guy. And when JJ does get flushed and run around, mean, you can see it. Roman's the guy he's looking for. So, for a smaller guy who's only 5'10" and a half, his ability to go up and make plays like he made on the ball against Nebraska the other day, that's a comfort for a quarterback when they know they can just kind of put it up to a guy. Usually quarterbacks just put it up to bigger guys, but Roman's a unique smaller guy, kind of like Tyler Lockett is for the Seattle Seahawks, a smaller guy that can go get it.
Well, and yeah, just physical at the catch point, and that's hard. You don't teach that. Like some guys just have that "give me the ball, it's mine" mentality.
And he has the substance. That's the thing. Like being around Locke when I was in Seattle, like Tyler was a smaller guy in stature, but he was really physical, like a thicker, like physical guy. And Roman, we used to call that like functional strength. Like Roman's got some functional football strength that he doesn't get muscled off the ball in those situations. So there's a lot of cool things about Roman Wilson: the speed, the catch skills. He is a cool prospect.
Right now, I got to tell you about Game Time. That's right. Game Time is the best place to get last-minute tickets. It is stress-free shopping, allows you to get the tickets that you never thought you could get. Like, for example, if you wanted to go to the Cotton Bowl and you wanted to take in the Red River Shootout, Red River Rivalry, whatever you want to call it, $319. You could get in there. It's a big game. Yeah, there's some price to it, but you could get a ticket for the Red River Rivalry right now with a couple of clicks. Now, let's say maybe you don't want to go to Red River. Maybe you want to go to Kyle Field and watch Texas A&M play Alabama. Well, you can get in there for less than $200 right now, and you just pick your ticket. You decide where you want to sit. You can actually look exactly at where you will be sitting. You can see what's a vantage point from your ticket would be, and then 2 more clicks, and that ticket belongs to you. You can transfer the tickets to a friend via text. It's that easy with Game Time. So download the Game Time app, redeem the code STAPLES, and you get $20 off your first purchase. The promo code is STAPLES for $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. So what are you waiting for? That game you want to go to, that concert you want to go to, you can get tickets. Just use Game Time. So another guy that you saw in person, and speaking of a little bit smaller guys, this is a guy who's been dinged up this year, and this was our first extended look at Lad McConkey from Georgia. He's a huge part of their national title run last year, but what did you see from him in person against Auburn?
First, it was just good to see him back out there, Andy. I mean, Kirby Smart made comments during the week that he was going to play, and you just never know. So when he came out during pregame, I was like, okay, this is going to happen. This is great. And I'd never really set my eyeballs on Lad before. When I'd go to games in the past, he wasn't a senior, so wasn't paying as much attention. And you're right, he's 5'11", he's 185, so he's not like the biggest guy in the world, but he was an easy guy to like off junior tape. He was our second graded receiver off junior tape behind Rome Odunze from Washington. And
wow.
Really what you like about him is that he makes plays at all 3 levels. He can take short stuff and make big gains. He's tough enough to work intermediate and not afraid to work across the middle. And then he can go deep on you. Really the one knock last year was there was a couple deep balls he didn't convert on that you would have liked to have seen. But other than that, like any criticisms we would have had off last year would have been really nitpicky. And, we do a scout school here at the Senior Bowl in the summertime, and it's just open for former NFL players. So Lad's one of the guys we watched, and man, he won the room over really quickly. And there was some former NFL DBs in that room. And then I was asking questions of them, like, what do you see in this guy? What do you like about this guy? He's really got a cool, really versatile wide receiver skill set. I think he can play inside. He can play outside because he's quick and fast. I think he's going to run high 4.3s. So, wow. Just a really fun player to watch on tape, and it's good to see him back out there.
Yeah, it was a big boost for Georgia's offense, which needed it at the time because they fell behind pretty quick. But got some big games this weekend, Jim, with a bunch of guys that I'm sure that you're watching, and I'm excited to get your take on Texas, Oklahoma, huge stakes, probably the biggest stakes in a long time. It's the first time they've been undefeated playing against each other since 2011. I feel like Texas has a bunch of guys that kind of fit your profile, especially along that defensive line.
They do. They've got a number of guys. And I've never been to a Red River game, man. That's a bucket list. That and Army Navy I've never been to. I feel like I've been to about all the other games over the time in scouting. I really got to get to one of these games. But yeah, Texas has a bunch of guys. They got the 2 D tackles up front, Devondre Sweat and Alfred Collins. Both they're different players, very different. So like if you're a guard or a center preparing for those 2 guys, I mean it's a different challenge. Sweat's all power. He's just gonna come right down the middle and bull rush you. And Collins gives you a little bit more. He's longer too. And then you got a playmaking, Jalen Ford, a playmaking middle linebacker in the middle. You got, Jedi Barron at nickel. You've got a bunch of guys at safety. I mean, they've got NFL guys all over that defense. So it's going to be a good matchup. And we can talk if you want about Dillon Gabriel. I kind of feel like he's kind of the overlooked quarterback in this class right now. You're hearing nothing about him. And then we can get into it, but man, he's playing really efficient football right now.
Well, and I'm curious what you see in Dillon Gabriel, because I was talking to George Stoya, who works for our Oklahoma site yesterday, and we were talking about how Dillon Gabriel's kind of playbook has been opened up because they were so scared to run him last year. They lost him to a concussion after the TCU game. That's why he couldn't play against Texas. It feels like they're much more comfortable running him because they've got Jackson Arnold behind him now. And when having his entire toolkit available feels like it really opens up what he can do for you.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna put the shackles on him and not let him use his mobility, that takes away a big part of his game because that's what he does. He can move and he can throw on the move. He can throw accurately on the move. I know I haven't looked at the numbers from the past weekend, but going into the weekend, he was like 78%, 12 touchdowns, 1 pick. I mean, playing really good football. And, it sounds like a cop-out a little bit, because I know he's been compared to Tua since their days, growing up in Hawaii.
High school, left-handed, yeah.
Yeah, lefty, Hawaiian kid, broke all Tua's records. But really, when you watch him, I mean, there are some similarities there. And just going back to my time scouting for the Seattle Seahawks, we tried forever to find a guy that kind of mirrored Russell Wilson's skill set, and we never could really find that guy. They're hard. If for no other reason, I mean, a team that really makes sense. I know it's a long way out now, but the Miami Dolphins have to be interested in this guy because, because the worry is like when I was in Seattle, if Russ ever went down, and thank God he never did, we had Tavares Jackson, and T-Jack was a great player, really good player, but they were different.
They're not the same at all. Yeah,
we would have had to change. And so to me, like if I'm the Dolphins, I'm really dialed into this game and how Dillon Gabriel's playing, because if he were on the roster and Tua, God forbid, went down, I mean, you could plug a guy in and just keep on, because what Dillon Gabriel does, get the ball out fast, get it out accurately, can move around a little bit. So similar guys. So this should be a really fun matchup.
Yeah, I misspoke earlier. Not same high school as Tua. He broke all of Tua's records, like you said. Same high school as Mackenzie Milton. That was why Gabriel ended up getting recruited to UCF, because Mackenzie Milton was selling him to Josh Heupel back in the day. But that I did not even thought about that. But you're right. I mean, he is the ideal backup for Tua Tagovailoa. Like, it's crazy.
And that's what he projects us right now. He if you're forget grading scale, like every NFL team's on a different grading scale. People in the media have different grading scales. Like we in the office here at Senior Bowl, we like to talk about like what are they going to be at the next level. Like let's forget about what round he's going in. Right now Dillon Gabriel projects as a backup level player, and what better fit than in Miami?
Oh, that would be incredible. All right, so a couple other big games that I wanted to get your take on. One is, you saw Georgia last week. They're playing against Kentucky, and Ray Davis was obviously the name that everybody was talking about coming out of the weekend. The Vanderbilt transfer, he had 280 yards against Florida. But I mean, they got JJ Weaver. They've got quite a few guys that I would imagine you guys have had on your radar for a little while.
Yeah, Ray Davis is our Senior Bowl Offensive Player of the Week. As soon as we jump off here, I'm going upstairs to watch the tape. Some other guys on the staff have already seen it. But you go for 280 in the SEC, that's a big number, especially against a Florida defense with Cam Jackson and Princely up front. I mean, they did a great job shutting down Tennessee the week before. So I did not think Ray Davis was going to go off and have this kind of game. He'd had a lot of success those first 4 weeks against, kind of a softer non-conference schedule. I didn't know if it would carry over to Saturday, and it sure did. I mean, 280 in the SEC. And then he was running away from people.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a 75-yard touchdown run. So I'm excited to go upstairs and watch the tape of that game. But they've got some good people. I mean, they got Eli Cox, Marcus Cox. I mean, they've got some dudes up front on that offensive line, some real NFL prospects. So that should be a fun one. I mean, 2 undefeated teams. I know that College Game Day is going to the Red River game, but man, that's going to be a good one in Athens.
Oh yeah. Well, and you've seen that Georgia defensive front. And because I was curious, because Kentucky did all that against Florida without Kenneth Horsey playing, one of their better offensive linemen. And how do you think they're going to match up front against Georgia's D-line? Because I know you've gotten a good look at Georgia's D-line.
Yeah, I saw them this week. No, this is no knock. I mean, we're talking about one of the great defensive fronts in the last 25 years. They're not the same. They don't have Jordan Davis, right? They don't have Devontae Wyatt. They don't. But you know, the guys they do have: Nazir Stackhouse, Brinson. So there's good players up front. It's just a little bit, you know, a notch below where they've been. But those guys are good players. You know, the Brinson kid is huge when you get up on him on the field. I mean, that's a good looking sucker now. And so these guys are all NFL draft picks that they're going to be trying to go up against this week, but just maybe not quite to the level of, again, a bunch of first-round draft picks they've had there the past couple of years. So
Alabama heading to Texas A&M, that's another one. It feels like in the trenches, it's going to be a very important matchup. But who will you be looking at in this game? I know you've seen the Crimson Tide up close already.
Yeah, we've seen Alabama a couple times. I think as a staff, we've seen them 4 times already. They're right here in our backyard. I was up there for the Texas game, but on the A&M side, McKinley Jackson, the nose tackle for Texas A&M, he can be a game wrecker. You know, when he's on his game, and he's on his game all the time. That kid plays really hard for a defensive lineman. But Fadil Diggs, Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker, you know, has put back-to-back games where he's filled the stat sheet. So that we're going to be looking at that front 7 for Texas A&M and kind of how they stack up against Alabama's O-line. Alabama's O-line the last couple of weeks looks like they're getting it together, playing better the last couple of weeks. They're running it. Jalen Milroe's running it. Jason McClellan's running it well. So this is going to be big boy football. You know, Jimbo's seat, you know, just listening to the media, might have been getting a little hot after that Miami game to you know, come out of the year. At least the last couple of weeks, they've played really, really well. Give it to Jimbo and that staff. They've really pulled it together and played well the last few weeks.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling myself is maybe Miami's just good. Maybe they had a good game against Texas A&M because their offensive line is pretty good. But that Texas A&M front 7 has looked great against Auburn and against Arkansas. Yeah,
those are 2 good tests. You know, Auburn and Arkansas both. Those are big boy teams. I mean, good players, and they've responded. I think that DJ Durkin, you know, probably wishes he could do a couple things differently against Miami. They kind of sat back and let Tyler Van Dyke pick them apart. I've noticed they've been a little more aggressive the last couple of weeks with some blitz stuff. They've gotten Cooper really involved in the rush game from his linebacker spot. So, it should be a good one. Another really good matchup.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples On 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.